So let's talk about this week's development, how things are going with you and what's going on. I mean, it looks like you are very active, so it's been great. And while I'm asking you why, because since you're like a newbie on Substack, I think
Yes.
what I really want to know is more maybe for people that are new or about to start venturing further than
Uh-huh.
their capabilities. Like, tell me what you've learned this week that you could start sharing and all that.
Hi, keep the smile, just joined me. Um, well, interestingly enough, a woman who you know and you've interviewed, Margaret Williams, hopefully she'll come
Yes.
on soon. She contacted me immediately after our last live and said, can we chat because I'd like you to do a live with me.
Right.
Oh, sure, and it's not like I vet people, but can I say I vet people? I don't know. I think we have to be a bit discerning because I don't want to get on to someone's live and get blindsided. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's not that I think anyone who follows me or subscribe to me would be like that at all. But I've already encountered not like Instagram or X, which I'm not on, or Facebook, which I'm not on, or TikTok,
Right.
which I'm not on. Um, there's been some, I don't know, should I call it infiltration of the mindsets from other social media, and we just don't feel like that here. That being said,
Yeah.
a few people, yeah, have contacted me, and I was like, no, thank you. Um, but so Margaret, singing Margaret's praises. We just spoke. We just had an hour and a half conversation before
Oh,
this one,
wow.
and she was just all in on, I want to help you grow your Substack and taking me around every place because I haven't been on quite 3 months.
Right.
And do you do this? Do you do that? Have you tried this? Are you doing that? Monetizing, not monetizing, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just the fact that, like how we found each other by
Right.
something I posted or you posted or we simultaneously posted and then we started chatting, I'm finding just people who are willing to help other people and not feel like things will be taken away from them if they help you on Substack, if they give you impart a little wisdom, or like I say, the golden nugget.
Right.
You know, they don't feel like the people that have been in my sphere as of late. I don't feel competition. I feel camaraderie and I feel a pay it forward type of thing.
Right.
Um, and pay it forward is really important to me. My brother from another mother who I've known for longer than I haven't known him, he helped me out a lot in my performance career, introducing me to the right people and helping me get gigs and long-term jobs. And I said, what can I do for you? And he said, just pay it forward. Just pay it forward. And, we're still best friends to this day. He's in his late 70s now. But yeah, I'm of that mindset, and when Margaret and I spoke about that whole idea of pay it forward, and I've gotten so far in my writing career when I was in entertainment full time. In my meditation teaching career, I tell you, I wouldn't have gotten half of the amazing jobs in recovery, in juvenile detention, in disordered eating, working with young people if it hadn't been someone recommended me
Right.
or someone said, go here, they need this. I think you're a perfect fit.
Right.
And I feel that vibe here,
Mhm.
you know. And so far, it's not so far so what? It's so far so good, you know.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
mean, well, and this week was a little bit challenging overall, I think, in the sense of on social media mostly. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
there was a couple incidents this week. And one of the things that being sick, you had a lot of time scrolling on a bunch of social media.
Mm,
And,
mm.
I was a little bit here, a little bit there. And TikTok was just full of it. And it was just, I mean, just mean spirited things, even on Twitter and all that. But I came back to Substack and it had a completely different vibe. People were still living their life. There was still enjoying things, I didn't see any of those posts that I saw in those other places. Now, maybe people chose not to do that, which I'm grateful for, but you just couldn't get away from it. It was just there. And then even Facebook, which I'm like, I have a Facebook account, which, but because I have a Facebook page or for Positive Pen, and even on that feed, like people are my friends. I mean, if I'd gone in there and I would have posted stuff, I'd have lost 50 friends easily.
And
And
people are losing subscribers and followers and all that kind of stuff. And it's not okay, you don't have feelings, and you don't
right,
have core values, and you don't have, opinions. We all have them. Um, but whichever kind of echelon you are, participating in or not, someone is probably going to have something negative to say about even the most positive thing you've got to say. I've had that
oh yeah,
where, I do my best in my own way of become having intimate knowledge of myself and being a student of my own behavior
right,
to instead of detracting or adding to the noise. We talked about this. I want to be signal. I don't want to be noise. And I just posted yesterday a short video about, signal and noise, 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 noise. And I really focus on my writing, how I feel I can make a contribution. If someone needs something that I have, because I go out to other people, you have what I need. Would you share that with me? Writers, people who post videos, even just one
right,
sentence. Um, that's refreshing. That's giving me, or sometimes it gives me a reason to get up in the morning because I'm being such an empath and an intuitive. I'm, in bed in the morning going, okay, drink your water before you get out of bed and go downstairs and have your matcha. Please get out of bed, because unless I'm really breathing through all of that
right,
and not absorbing it, I can get a little bit in the weeds.
right. So I mean, this is a very lesson learned, I think, this week about how we conduct ourselves on the internet. I mean, obviously, that's something I think there was a very subconscious amount of thought of me putting Substack together was mostly because I wanted to express my writing. I want to express my inner soul, I guess, is that, and I wanted that convey that. I mean, yeah, do I have opinions? Absolutely, but sometimes not all your opinions should be shared. And I think that's where I think a lot of people will think that just because you're on social media, you can just go ahead and just post all your opinions.
And
And
everyone's opinion about everything is so relevant and important, or it is relative. Um, Everyone has an opinion. Of course we do, but I agree. I certainly don't share all of mine. I like to keep some things for myself, you know?
well, that's a part of the problem. I think that was the thing that I was working on when I was working on Earn Not Given book. I
Yeah.
started creating I started creating videos of that, and it's
Oh.
been, it's so I'm been posting on TikTok, creating the videos, creating content, doing your editing on your book. That's a lot. Plus, I have other activities outside of those things that I'm working on. And one of the things I noticed is that, um, so when I was started posting content, I stayed more on the human side of life and on the more of like, look, I understand you feel this way, but this is not the time to be emotional per se. I mean, what I mean by emotional, not to be erratic, not to go and start um, shit posting on people's stuff. That's not how you should be. You should really take, excuse language, but that's how I feel. Don't go around and, dogging other people. I think So when
We
I
can be very reactionary. We can be very knee jerk. We can be very triggered because of what's going on just with ourselves, our
yes,
lives, and certain things will trigger us. And it happens to me, and I do my best to go, okay, is
yeah,
this really what I wish to feel? And is this really, really valid for me? Or is it just something in my past or something that has, set off a little atom bomb in me? And I
yeah.
went,
I mean, when I look at yeah, so when I look at my post, I try not to like I do share across all media, like my Facebook and a couple other places. On TikTok, I've created like a video. It's an easy one. I can, the image I put on Substack, I'll put music and boom, I could do it from there. And yesterday or a couple days, I didn't stop posting what I wanted to post. Like I did like, so when I was doing a TikTok, I still continued my messaging because at the end of the day, that noise will go away and then a new event will come in and occupy that space. But if
mm-hmm,
you keep losing your voice and you keep defragmenting yourself in different forms, for example, like on Twitter, you might be very politically active and you might be out
mm-hmm,
there, whatever. But if your voice is never consistent in the sense it's like if your voice is similar to here and it's similar there with a couple tweaks, that's a different story. But you have to keep your messaging similar. That's what I believe. And so I still maintain the
consistent. Yeah.
consistent because don't get me wrong, I do have opinions about politics and it's pretty hard when you're a political science major and a history major, you have a lot of, you
You
know
have it all.
yeah,
You have all of
and
it. Yeah.
I try to stay away from it. It's not because I just don't wanna engage, I just learned there's no value behind it. You're just one voice talking to that's why I wanted to do the inspirations because it's a bigger voice, and I have a bigger impact on that than if I was politically active. Does that make sense? Because then I'm only in an echo chamber here. I'm not an echo chamber. I'm more talking about the humanitarian part of the world and more of the sense of how we are as people. Where people dive into these little echo chambers, now your market shuts down. You're alienating, 3/4 of the market, a quarter of the market. And so if you're trying to sell content or you're trying to sell your Substack, for example, you're now limited to yourself to those people. And not saying you cannot make money in in that area. I think it's just very hard because there's so many other people doing the same thing.
Mm,
And
mm-mm-mm.
you lose your voice in the matter of arguments that doesn't make sense, and then just it's just a very challenging moment. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yes, absolutely it does. And I am in the healing arts, helping people to know themselves better, to be willing at times to be cracked open, to understand themselves better because I needed that years ago, and
Right.
I went to people to help me do that, and um here I am today. But we there's a lot of healing that needs to be happening all over the world. And I a lot of this stuff, the subjects, the politics, whatever's involved in the politics across, it's not going away. It will constantly, oh, and let there be light. Did it again. Last time, flipping 1 second. Hold on, please. I lost my light because I stay on my phone too long. Um, let there not be light. Um, voila. Um, but there is a huge, I don't know if you want to call it resurgence or surge of people wanting to feel more at peace. I don't say triggered, less tension, less stress, less anxiety, less depression, less like things are futile and um desirous of not getting in the fray, as it were. Seeing things, I don't go looking for any of this. I really don't. But it's unavoidable. I want to read my friends' work. I want to see what my friends are doing, colleagues, writers, whomever. And it's unavoidable that when you're doing this,
Yeah.
something's going to go blah, blah.
Well,
And
actually, I have an example of that. So I was texting my son. He's in Pittsburgh, going to college there, university,
oh,
and we were texting about football, right? And he sent a picture of World War II picture of people reading the newspaper, and on there said Hitler was dead.
mm,
And I kind of went, "Son, what's that in reference? Is that Moody the kicker you didn't like, or me? Like, who are you referencing that to, right?"
or your
And he said,
general
"Oh,
feelings about the world.
yeah," or he'd go, "Whatever." And then I sat with it. He responded, and I sat with it, and I said, when we were younger, that word really had a powerful meaning behind it. We didn't use it just for the sake of using it. When you called somebody that, that's really meaning you just didn't think they're worthy of it. You didn't think they're worth their life because of how they were. So, and I lived in Germany for a while there,
Mm,
and and this is before the wall. It was like just before the wall came down and all that. So I got to see some stuff there. And, Yugoslavia wars going on. It was on that same period. It was like, Iraq was building up. There was some scary moments in that time. And you got to see the life of, of how certain groups were treated. And you went to go visit the museums, you went to go visit the stuff. It's just like going up to New York now when you go to the 9/11 memorial or the museums, things like that. I mean, if you lived through it, that's gonna bring some stuff, and you're gonna go there and go, "Okay, well, I remember how that feels." So, as an historian, reading a lot of books, I went there and I got to see some stuff. So my text to my son was like, "Hey, son, I'm sorry, but that word has a bigger meaning than you think." I said,
mm.
"And I wish you don't use it that way because if you saw what I saw in Germany." And I said, "And our ancestors are the Italian resistant, like they were fighting against Mussolini and
Yeah,
I said,
mhm.
if you understand what our family tree did, and you went to Italy and you got to see all that, you understand that word is not something you could just throw around loosely." And I said, "I just wanna let you know."
Mm,
And
mm.
I'm paraphrasing that, but that's basically how I wrote it. That's how I said it because I think that's where words matter. I don't care who you are. And that's why I'm very specific when it comes to the inspirations because words do matter. Because if you did read my stuff and you read a lot of other people that are very similar to how I write, your mindset changes. It's no longer this garbage in, garbage out, which we see on other social media platforms. You're really making you're planting seeds in your mind, in your health, in your life, and creating the peace, the prosperity, and that the world is not all gloom and doom per se. And
Mm, mhm.
I think that's where these other platforms fail because of that type of behavior. Um,
And we get used to it, though. We get used to
oh,
being spoon-fed all the time, and I spoke about this earlier with, Margaret, how, the brain, I made it my job to study the brain as a meditation master, and I'm not speaking for all meditation teachers, but none I have ever met personally have studied how the brain acts on meditation and how the brain's propensity is to think negative thoughts first. And the more negative thoughts we think, the faster the synapses for negative thoughts grow together. So we have to work at, positivity and thinking positive thoughts. But going back to what you said about 9/11, my son was born on 9/11,
Mm.
but he was 3 years old, and we were living in Canada. And early in the morning, we were getting phone calls because I was raised in New York. Turn on the TV, turn on the TV, turn on the TV. And we were planning a birthday party for him. And of course, I turned on the television and I was flabbergasted. And I started getting in touch with people and saying, should I cancel this party for him for his third birthday? And everybody was a resounding no. You have to honor him. He doesn't know anything about this. This isn't,
Right. It's not his
and it's
fault.
not dishonoring the other people. So fast forward 7 years later, where we went to New York. Um, he was 10, and it was just the ground zero was just, oh, the thing is that they called for their temporary memorial. They called for stories, and I wrote the story about my son being born on 9/11 and the birthday party, and they displayed it at
Oh,
the
wow.
first yeah, I mean, an honor personified. But so we went to ground zero, and it was a big hole in the ground. And I'm like, I'm going to be the tough parent. I'm going to be stoic. And I just stood, especially being raised in New York, spending a lot of time there in the city. I just started blubbering like a baby. And 10 years old, he put his arm around me. He said, Mom, all those people are at peace. And it's still a good day because it's the day I was born.
Huh?
And I'm like, 10 years old. I I will never ever, I don't, until the end of this, I will never forget how wise he was.
Yeah.
And I know other people that were born on 9/11, and I don't forget what happened, but I also honor them too.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways to look at pictures. The big pictures, I guess. We talked about that, about I've been doing lives for a little while on different platforms, and I wanted to start them here, but I wanted to make sure you were cool with it, since
We're
you and I
good.
are the OG of this one.
It's
But it
okay.
is, I mean, it's going to be expression, consciousness, and the big picture,
Yeah.
which, I mean, you and I have distinct things that we talk about, and you're going to come on, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
you
absolutely,
you
yeah.
can't say no. But
Well,
yeah.
maybe. Just
Huh?
I said maybe.
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 Yeah, well, I can be
So
very persuasive.
we talk about, so a lot of so when it comes down to my writing, a lot of my writing comes from my past or things I've
Mhm.
seen. And one of the things I really wanna start working on is a project called Hemingway's Footsteps.
Oh. Yes, you mentioned that in one of your posts.
Yeah. So one of the things I really wanna do is explore because I've been to a lot of places where he's been to. I've never been to Key West. I've had,
Oh
like,
my
4
gosh, that's
chances.
gotta be a trip. It's amazing.
It's
It's
like
amazing.
I know, I had 4 chances to go down there, and they all went, and one of them was to take me to Cuba, and that didn't work out, and I was, like, really annoyed. Yeah, I coulda gone to Havana and all that. It was
But it
but
didn't
I
happen.
didn't happen, but I was able to catch her. I mean, that's really the last 2 that I need to do, per se.
And the
Um,
one in Key West is really touristy,
yeah,
and it's hard, I guess it's still harder for people from the States to go to Cuba, isn't it? Because me being Canadian American, I can go no problem.
as a
But,
Canadian, that's not an issue. I'm being
yeah.
American, that's a different you have to get special, invitation and things like that. It's I don't know, there's a way to do it, but there's a guy in Miami who is able to do this. So,
Oh.
but I don't know him. I knew him through somebody else, so I gotta figure out who that guy is. Um, but so I kinda wanna work on that project, and I still am struggling with my book editing, and
Mm,
then so I wanna get on that, but one of the things that brought me up was I was in Spain, in Madrid, and we talked
mm,
about, reflection, right?
mm. Mhm.
So as you're a historian, you read a lot of history books and you see a lot of pictures. And I forgot the main um, park there, but it's right next to a huge museum. It's right there. Franco's house used to be. It was like really, really cool. And the only reason why I knew this is because my dad was a mason. He actually did precast and did a lot of work on concrete.
Oh,
It's like
wow.
that was his craft. Very talented individual, well sought out person. Traveled throughout North America and all that for his work, and it was an art in itself. But
Mhm.
so I was sitting there. I was like maybe 21. No, I was like 26. I'm standing there and I'm looking at this wall. And this wall had really poor workmanship of patching.
Mm.
And behind me was the fountain that I remember in the books. I apologize. I don't have all the names in my properly. But as I was standing there, I was thinking about, well, this is kind of weird because we just did the cantinas of the Hemingway walkway, the bullfight, and all
Oh,
that
wow.
stuff, right? And then I'm sitting there going, man, my dad would be really mad about this. He'd be like, who the hell is doing this work, right? And as I started to kind of think about it, I was like, they're very kind of like all even per se. They
Mhm.
were so if you think about it, the way it was lined up, it was a firing squad. So all those holes were patched because there are bullets in the walls.
Oh.
Yeah, and like in granite and things like that. So and then, so you start to I started having this visualization like, holy smokes, I'm vividly thinking about this wall. And I turned around and I immediately saw the aftermath in my head of what that fountain looked like in 19 I think it was 1936 or 34, something like that. And I just like, "Oh my god," you could see like, it was almost like a quick like, you saw the bodies where they laid, as the photographer took the pictures and all that. So it was like so when you talk about the imagery like, from the present and past, sometimes when you're writing, that's how I see it. Like, I see it in that perspective. I don't know if that makes sense, but I kinda see, like, how the past was, and I try to bring it back and go, "Okay, this is where it needs to be present time." And I think
Mhm.
I and I don't know if that is a weird way of thinking of life, but that's just how I
Not
look at
at
things.
all. Because while you were saying that, what came to me is when I climbed the Great Wall of China at Badaling outside of Beijing, um, it's quite an extensive climb, and people you get to the top, and they're celebrating and popping champagne, but I they had some of the, armor of the Mongols that
Oh,
they
wow.
wore, and as I got higher and higher, I could hear and visualize them coming up towards the wall, the sound of their grunting and the clanging of their, armor, and hearing, them with their spears, visualizing I just hear it and see it so vividly of, them invading, and I can see, when you've got, vivid imaginations or you're able to picture things like you just said, of the firing squad and the bodies. And I think that makes our ability to storytell that much richer. People who have vivid imaginations, I dream vividly. The only way I know I've slept, because I'm not the world's greatest sleeper, is that I remember that I dreamt.
Oh,
And and if I wake up feeling refreshed at all, I know I slept, but mostly it's if I wake up in the middle of the night, which I want to do several times a night, is, "Oh, yeah, I dreamt, so I slept." And, but yeah, my I think my imagination is quite vivid, And I think that makes for incredible storytelling.
And I think that's where I think when writers start to write, and I'm learning this myself. So, like I said, I want to work on Hemingway's stories, and I want to write it in his perspective, which is going to be very hard to do. But or
He
maybe,
was
yeah,
so
he.
expansive and
Oh
then had
yeah,
so much mental health so many mental health problems.
but that was. But one of the stories came out of it. Where it really led me on to Hemingway was back in the World War I. He was a military army an army ambulance driver, and he was in. If you knew where northern Italy is, Bassano da Gappa, which was a war between Austria and Italy for multiple days, and this is like in the Alps, and where our village is and where our little villa is of Italy sits underneath that mountain. And during
And
that
where is
time,
that? What's the name of the
so
village or the villa?
so it's Bassano da Grappa is the mountain, and
Okay.
Bassano da Grappa is also the city, little town.
Mm.
Um, but it was we're in San Zenone, which was about 10 miles west of Bassano da Grappa. But Bassano da Grappa is the area, and it's just north of Veneto and east of Venice. So
Oh, okay. I know where it is.
it's
I've
in that
been
ridge.
all
Yeah.
over Italy too. So yeah.
So, you know, in the Italian armies were fighting up there, and the American was stationed right on the back farm of where our homestead was, and that's where the
Wow.
cantina was all that. And so I had a little bit of like I was thinking, okay, did he actually drove through here? So in the story, I think it's Far and Away, where he wrote about a guy named Rinaldi, and my last name's Ronaldo.
Ooh,
So
Ronaldo.
I
Yeah.
was always trying to figure out, is there any correlation between my family and that family? Now, Ronaldos they have very variations in that region. So there is Rinaldis, there's so many variations. And I think it just comes from just multiple years of changing names and things like that. So so that's really got my quest going on why, and that's where I started my journey. It was like, okay, I gotta follow his footsteps and see where it goes. So that's really the story. And I started when I was living in Germany. I was like 19, something like that, years old, and I couldn't be. The story kind of goes through where I got drafted by the Italian army. Couldn't really live in Italy because I was drafted by the Italian army. I had to carry a Canadian passport, make sure that any of the police that stopped me, Cabanese, stopped me that I don't speak Italian. So I was like really like it was a lot of that going on. So it was kind of weird. Yeah. A lot of
Well, the whole
ventures.
era, sorry, the whole era you talked about in your previous article post about, the Hemingway era with F. Scott Fitzgerald
Yeah.
and with Buñuel and Dali and uh, Gertrude Stein and all of those in that amazing movie with Owen Wilson. Oh, it's called
Midnight
Midnight.
in Paris.
Midnight in Paris.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that. If I've seen that movie once, I've seen it a dozen times, and it's really interesting to see that. And then she talked about the woman, French woman who was in it. She talked about how she was Picasso's lover. She was several of
Yes.
these artists' lover, but her favorite era was the La Belle Époque. It wasn't the golden era or the lost generation era.
Yes.
But can you imagine Man Ray and Buñuel and Dali and F. Scott Fitzgerald and all of those and uh, uh, Gertrude Stein? They all are friends, and Hemingway, and they all know each other, and they're all working together and helping each other and partying like crazy
Oh
and
yeah.
fighting. and arguing and fighting and, you
It's
know
awesome. So, where Hemingway's, house is in the 5th district in Paris, right? You
Yes.
okay. So,
Yeah.
we were in London, we came into, Paris, and we were on a venture, and I met a friend, another Canadian in London, and the night before, we said, "We're gonna go." And, of course, that was stupid because it cost us $200 more if we would have planned it months ago, right? But anyways, long story short, we went, and she was someone that I just met, didn't know anything about her. We are just 2 Canadians decided to go to Paris because we that's what we wanted to do.
Right.
And, Canadians are kinda weird that way, but whatever. So we're on and I didn't think she'd show up.
For an adventure, up for an
Yeah.
adventure,
Yeah, and I
and
didn't
not
think
feeling like it's threatening.
yeah, and I didn't think she'll show up, but she did. It was like 6 o'clock. She showed up off the door. We got on the train, and it was like 2-hour train ride. Get into Paris, and the first thing that I saw was that I got out. I didn't see it, I smelt it. I smelt the cafe. I smelled the
Oh.
air, the mist. I felt I felt like there's a different it was like a completely different feelings of how it should be. And as I was going through the motions, she was like, because I was like I was in a trance situation. And she's like, "I have to use the bathroom." And I was like, "What?" I woke up and she's like, "Yeah, I have to go use the bathroom." I said, "Well, go to the restaurant." And they had to pay. As I didn't
Well,
realize you had to
yeah,
pay. So,
you gotta have a euro now,
but we
where
made a
did you
pla
stay? Where did you
well, no, it
stay
was a
in
we
this
only
5 arrondissement? You
we
didn't
only
stay
stayed
in
1
5
day. No, we only stayed for a day.
oh,
So we
okay.
planned it out. Like we said, okay, this is our game plan. So we wanted to go see this. She wanted to see Chanel. And I was like, yeah, whatever, that's yours. You can have that. And then I wanted to see Notre Dame and I wanted to go see uh, Hemingway. I said, Hemingway is a must. I'm not going to go. And I just need the Alpha Tower. So, but anyways, we went through this whole city and it must have been like 25,000 steps. That's what I was counting
There
when
is
I walked.
so much there. I mean, my one of my dearest friends who's German, when I went to visit her a few years ago, she surprised me with a trip to Paris because I speak Parisian French. I don't speak Quebecois, even though I'm Canadian. I speak Parisian French, which is different. We can understand each other for the most part, but yeah, and the two of us just, I mean, I spent, like you said, I spent the whole time in trance because going to Paris was one of the biggest goals of my life was to
Oh, yeah.
stand under the Eiffel Tower. And it was only like 22 degrees Fahrenheit that day when I went, but the sky was an azure blue and the cold didn't bother us. And for some reason, we were able to get in the Louvre very easily. There wasn't a long line. We stayed in this beautiful um, B&B in the 15 arrondissement with this great breakfast in the morning. And the women in Paris, they wore color and texture, and they were
Elegant.
and oh yes, I mean, older women too. I remember we were walking to it wasn't Notre Dame. I think we were going to Sacré-Cœur. And we stopped this woman because we were lost, and she was in this full length fur coat. Her hair was done, her makeup was done. And I get the animal rights people, that's really frowned upon, but old French women wearing fur is just a part of who they are, and she was just so well put together, and she had to have been, I think she told us she was in her late 70s, and she talked about walking everywhere, and she just was so
It's free.
fluid.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was free. And one of the things so when I finally hit Hemingway's house, I went there and went, "Oh, that's his house," more or less. But in the square, there's cafe and there's all the stuff going on and people were talking and there was a guy playing Humark. And, I sat down And for a moment, I had a smile on my face, I remember, and I was looking around, just memorized, like, just totally, like, I
Totally
could actually
mesmerized, yeah.
I can I can picture the 1920s and how all that was going on and all that stuff, and as I was sitting there kinda, like, going in this trance, my friend came up and she said, "I wish I took a picture of you." I said, "Why?"
Oh.
And she goes, "You look like a little kid, like, just so happy to be here." And I was like, "You really just don't understand how this feels. This I just feel like we're walking on the footsteps of the great people of this century, of this world, who's changed our whole entire, literature and all this stuff." I mean, like, the music. I mean, it was just and I think that's where, I get appreciation of these great writers, and I also get a great appreciation where they came from. I get also great appreciation the lives they lived because back then it wasn't cheap to live. I'm sure it wasn't cheap to live there because they weren't rich people. They were just living based on their passion, and their passion was writing or art, and, I mean, these writers and they didn't get paid per se.
Well, no, they had typically had some of them had sponsors,
Yes.
and they did sell some of their work, but they had someone giving them a certain agreed upon amount of money to sponsor them to create, whether it was visual art or written art or, um, etcetera. But I can't imagine that it was, even talk about coming back to the States, Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, he died a pauper
Mm.
and, in really bad circumstances. And a lot of these writers and creators and artists who have risen to such prominence over the decades or centuries did not die wealthy. They didn't even die realizing, uh, financially or even, critically their 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 genius. They died going, "Well, I put it out in the world, so, that's what has
Well,
happened."
Picasso's the prime example. None of his paintings really sold until after he died, more or less. I mean, he was selling
Mm,
paintings, but not in a $1,000,000 range. I mean, they became $1,000,000 after a while. I mean, I guess that's where true art is. Like, when you're writing, are you writing for the money or are you really writing for the pure art of it? And that's why I find it very differential is like, am I writing this because I want to make money? The answer is always, always yes. But but is it something that's gonna if I'm not making money, is that gonna hurt? Am I gonna get upset and walk away from it? And the answer is no, because I'm writing because of the art. I'm writing because I'm creating something. I'm putting something out there to help people see things. And I think that's where a lot of artists struggle is they always want to make the quick buck, thinking if they do this way, they'll go that way. I mean, writing a book, putting it together, and this was a little more special. I had to ask people to write forwards on it, which I put forwards on this. This is
mhm.
really the first time I did that. And it took like 3 months to get something in from these guys. I mean, these people I knew, and they said, yes, we'll do something. The last one took almost 5 months to do something. So it was and then when I got it, I had to put some editing in it and buff it up a little bit. Not that I took away their words, but I tried to help it out. And and then you have to go get an editor, make sure things are running through. So just to make I mean, think about the amount of money that I put in or time that I put in just doing that.
Time, yeah.
I mean, you're not making money on your self-publishing per se, unless it
No, no,
unless
unless that's the one thing I struggle with, and, I've told you, I have a publisher and, small publishing boutique publishing house, and, what I'm struggling with is I know people have bought my books,
yes.
quite a few of my books, but they don't leave reviews, and people I know, um who said, I've bought your book, or I've given them my book and said, would you read it? And if you liked it, even if you liked one thing, would you leave me a review? And it's in this day and age, the reviews and feedback speak. And if you're on Amazon and you've got 20, even 25-star reviews, Amazon doesn't consider that enough uh, to make you a priority, to recommend you or anything. You go way down on the list, and no one's obligated to write a review.
No,
But it's really, really helpful
that's where I started
when
that
they do, you
that's
know?
when I started. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, 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 no.
But that's where I started to write. So I was buying people's books, right? And then I would write a review and put it on Amazon because I knew how important that was. But no one was doing it for me. And I was like, I mean, this is getting a little expensive. Not that it was, you know, but the return wasn't there. Maybe because I was hoping what was happening was out of this community, we would do that naturally. Like, "Hey, like, you got a new book, let's all buy it," or whatever, or something along that line. And then what we would do is we would go and sponsor each other and go out and actually, you know, "You published a book this time around, let's go buy that book," or maybe you have a handful of books here, you sign it and send it out that way, whatever that looks like, but then leave a review. Or people maybe do review. I think that's where if this community really could help each other to monetize that avenue, because you're right, the more reviews that account gets, the higher it goes and the
The higher
faster
the
it
the
goes.
ranking. And I
It
know people have done certain things to even become bestsellers. The brand new book is, they'll sell it for 99 cents, which is great, in exchange for a five-star review. And I kind of struggle with that. If I'm getting five-star reviews, I want them to be authentic. And if someone says, I liked your book, but I can't give you 5 stars, I'm like, okay, well, can you give me, do you feel 4? Yeah. I go, well, I find it suspect if someone has 100% of 5-star reviews.
Oh, yeah, no, no, it went with that.
I just don't see how that's because poetry, like I write, and you say you don't write, but you do. um, it's subjective, and what one person may love, another person may not, and I understand that. Um, Mm, it's just a delicate dance because there are so many people writing now, and there's so many people who are self-publishing now. Um, and there are a lot of really good self-published books. And then there are a lot of not really good self-published books. But because someone is an incredible marketer, which I ain't, um, the best, they are way up in the rankings.
Mm.
And all's fair in love and publishing, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's where I think we could all help. And I don't mean, like, to go out and give us five-star reviews, just go out and read, either like, that's what I was hoping that if my book I mean, that's why I publish on Substack first. Hopefully, like, people read that, and then maybe they'll take that and put it on Amazon and get that going. At least they have a sense what the book is. Maybe they don't buy it, but at least they can put a good, "Hey, kudos. This is, we read this on Substack. This is a really great story." Whatever. I mean, I'm not looking for anything grandeur. I'm just looking for an honest review, and hopefully that would work. And I was
Mhm.
hoping the community would do that. I don't know if that's the etiquette way of doing things. I don't know. I'm just thinking, I'm
I
thinking
mean,
about it.
maybe someone who's with us. I'm gonna check in with the people that are watching. Hi, let's see. We've got Glenn, and Jeff and Richard, and keep the smile. I love it. Oh my gosh, really. I think I don't know if Keep the Smile was on last week when I talked about how much I constantly smile, and some people think I'm nuts. And when I went to Russia and was told not to smile, because we talked about that, because people said in Russia it looks suspect if you smile. Well, oh well. Richard and Simona's stories, quiet reminders, Tim, Brenda,
Simone's
Diana.
in.
Yeah,
Hey,
Diana,
buddy.
Susan Basham. I know you. And Margaret. Margaret, if you didn't see the beginning of this, I was just singing your praises because you're so worth it. And Mike, Eric's Corner, and Gray. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
So we kind of went from about storytelling. We talked about how to do storytelling. We talked about publishing and how it could be challenging. What is I think what's the most I don't know what to ask. I'm trying to think how to ask this. So as I was telling you about
Just ask it. That's what I was saying.
well, no, the
Ask
way
it.
I was doing videos and I was doing these so one of the things I'm doing these videos about co-parenting, which I
Oh,
knew so I'm coming from a perspective of been through it, done it. This is what I think you should be working on versus I'm not telling them. I'm just basically
your suggestions. Yeah.
yeah,
Your
suggestions.
input.
And I'm not diving into my world. And I remember, excuse me, I remember on TikTok, someone said, I said about why I'm doing these. And it was more of like for my children. So they kind of like, blah, 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 blah. And she said, you should tell them that. And I was thinking, and I kind of chuckled because now it's been over 5 years. I think that's, I've done that work. I've already done that. And I think about what writers go through. I think we go through a lot of pain to write, and then we do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of like, we really go into the inner thing, and I wrote a quote, I don't remember where I put it now, about inner spirits and how where did I put that? I write notes, and I just put them everywhere, and I
Oh
don't
yeah, me too. They're on everything. Well,
and I
and
don't
then even fiction writers, the ones that I've known, and ones that I've read interviews with said they draw from their real life, from people they know, from places they've been, from experiences they've had. It's not just the poetry writers or the nonfiction writers or the slice of life writers who are writing from their personal life experience.
right.
Yeah, our lives. I don't know a single person who does not have a storied life. And even
It's
people I know who say they don't have a storied life have a fascinating storied life.
so this is what I talk about discovering your inner self.
Okay.
Discovering your inner self isn't about finding something new. It's about peeling back the noise, the mask, the expectations. What is left is quieter, truer, and has been waiting for you all along.
You posted that, right?
I don't know. Did I? I don't remember how I did it. I don't know if I
Otherwise,
did.
it sounds very familiar, and it's something that you've said when we've spoken in the past. If you haven't, you must, because that's again, it's we supporting each other in all sorts of ways, emotionally, psychologically, creatively, mentally, physically. I mean, you've got people who are dealing, with physical therapy. We need each other. And maybe we've needed each other all along, whether there were 2 billion people on the planet or 8 billion people on the planet. And it's recognizing that. Um,
Well, I learned something new yesterday. It only
oh,
takes
I love
20
that.
it only takes 20 seconds of courage.
Mm.
20 seconds to say something, 20 seconds to take action. If you take the 20 seconds, you've accomplished most of what most people don't do. In other
Oh,
words,
that's big.
yeah, that is huge. So in other words, if you're sitting there pondering about it and you're not taking any action, guess what? Nothing happens. You didn't take any courage. You just sat and just stewed on it.
Well, nothing
It's
changes.
nothing
For
changes.
whatever reason, nothing changes. Yeah.
So that's one of the things you have to learn is you have to, like, in writing or in doing something, you have to take that once you take that 20 seconds of courage, that changes the paradigm shift. It changes everything you're doing. It just goes into a different angle that you can actually, excuse me, you can actually change the way your life is from what it is now
Yeah,
moving
your
forward.
trajectory, absolutely. It's just making that it's just taking that making that decision or having that realization um when you are stuck or not where you'd like to be or um and I truly believe think feel we're here to be conduits and catalysts for each other. I definitely have people that in my life who have been incredible conduits and catalysts. And I think that's a really resounding thing that needs to happen um on Substack, which takes Substack out of the fray of regular social media. When I first got on Substack, this seems so much kinder and gentler. And the peppering of the not kind and the not gentle, or the trolling, or the bullying, or the uh, uh, hacking, or whatever, um, just it seemed to be fewer and farther between. And I was quite right. And I had two women that had been telling me for maybe a year, you need to get on Substack. But at that point, I don't think I was ready to hear it and absorb it. And the right time came, you know?
So, do you think that 20 seconds, if you would have acted on it earlier, do you think you'd have been, if you would have
Woulda,
acted
shoulda,
then?
coulda, don't should all over yourself.
Yeah.
I I, no, I mean, I things have come to me in my life in my readiness. And I've been a person who, when I am not ready and I'm being forced for whatever reason to make this decision or to take this action, 99 times out of 100, it did not turn out in the way that would have been best for all concerned, professionally or personally. I'm just one of those people that can feel the exact time to ask for something or look for something or um even I have no I don't want to say shame. I'm not shy about writing notable people at all, especially if I've been really moved by something. And 99 times out of 100, these notable people have always written back to me personally and responded. It was not an, you know, auto response. It was not the assistant responding. You can just tell, but I've done it when it's felt like I will be able to get through to this person, or I will make the best decision for all involved, or the door will be open for me when I'm feeling peaceful and calm and relaxed about this decision, this movement. The moment I second guess it, the moment I let it start rattling around in my head, well, do or it doesn't, and I make the decision then, it has never worked out for me ever, 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 ever.
So you were more inner discovery at the time than you were a forward.
Mhm.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like you were kind of like sitting there going, let me just digest, let me see what's going on. Maybe because of the experience you had on social media that you're kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to go through another back crazy situation,
We're out of this. Yeah.
like
Yeah, and at the
drama?
time, as leaving social media for 7 years like I did, at the time, I was actually doing quite well and didn't really comprehend, um, because I got on YouTube in the early years, and in no time, I had 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and I walked away. Now that would be considered, I guess, a pittance. It isn't to me. Anyone who's sharing with you and getting anything from what you're presenting to me is win, win, win for everybody, for me, and I would trust for them. Um, I'm still dubious about it. I mean, when I was talking to Margaret, are you still there? I was talking to Margaret today about I can present so much on Substack and then put it on auto to Apple Podcast, to Spotify, to YouTube Music, to YouTube Podcast. Nya, 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 nya. Like, whoa. I mean, I don't have to hire my own assistant because I want to feel it out and see if what I'm doing or what I have to say has any value for others. But doing all that work all the time as a lone wolf, I guess, a single entity, feels very overwhelming to me, really
Oh, yeah.
overwhelming to me.
And that's, like, I remember the early days of Substack. It was just a platform you posted stories and that was it. I mean, there wasn't the notes, there wasn't the cameras, there wasn't any of those extra integrations things that you could do. Even though although they had the paid paywall that you could do,
Sure.
and the massive emails, which really help. But in other social medias, they weren't expanding the way Substack did. Um, so, uh,
But wait a minute. May I ask a question? Were you ever on
no.
Medium.com? Because I was on there in the very beginning when it was free, and then you could, in some way, monetize, and then now it's not. You have to pay a monthly or a yearly. And I've heard a lot swirling in the ethers about there's a lot of migration from or attrition from Medium that came here for various and sundry reasons, and I didn't stay on it long enough to see evidence of that, so I don't know if anyone in our viewership did that.
Mm. No, I was, like, on Tumblr, I didn't like that.
Mm,
It became very political again,
mm.
and then there's a couple other ones out there. I just found Substack to be more. I even did a test where how many audience people are reading my content because you could do that with all your platforms, and Substack was always the first.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
it had farther reach than it did on my platform on my, Facebook or Twitter or on other platforms. It was
Mhm.
up there, it was engaging, there was a lot more engagement, there was a lot more n and you could deal with the trolls very easily, here on Substack, I think, because people would just, once they see a troll, they kinda get rid of them. Um, but that's where I think the shift happened here on Substack is I think that's, in the early days, like I said, there was nothing there. And that's when I stopped playing because I didn't feel any tractions, right? And
Oh,
then
interesting.
and that's where I went back. When I came back, and I went, "Well, what's all this stuff?" Like, it was 2 different things,
Mm.
and I relearned everything. This is all new to me. So, even though I had an existing platform, an active platform, I should say, it took a while for me to catch up what was going on. Sometimes I wish I stayed 'cause I woulda saw the progression of it, and maybe if I spent more time understanding what was going on, and I think that's part of the learning curve, but now I'm grateful that I'm in it because, like I said, this past week, I went on the stories now, don't get me wrong, I didn't read a lot of stuff because I didn't feel like reading things,
You've been
but
sick, you're
well
allowed.
well, I wanted a videotape and all that, so that's the thing. I think that's where when I think when you start putting efforts into one platform and using this as your base and pushing it out, like you were saying, to
Mm,
YouTube channel and all that, they'll grow on their own based on the creation you have here. And the more you create here and the more you push it out, the better it is. Now, the only thing I wish they had better is integration into Facebook and maybe other places so that when you post on Notes, it goes elsewhere.
mm.
I don't know if they're working on that or not, but that's the only thing I wish they had more of, um, because, that would help. Um,
Yeah, for it to be a little less work. Hello, Substack. Do you hear John? Help us
but
integrate more. Help us make it a little bit easier. Yeah, and I was going to say that you are on quite a few other platforms, but have you automated it so it just disseminates everywhere, or is it every single one you have to wow?
I made it easier. So, like, when you see my Substack, I post these little sayings that I create and
Hmm.
put a picture there, and I'll do that. And that'll be repetitive throughout the place. And then on TikTok, I would put that picture up, I would size it up, and then I put the quote on there. I was thinking to actually read these quotes out loud and then do that. Um, but it's kinda hard when you're doing the the co-parenting stuff and this. I'm trying
Sure.
so it's a lot of work to do, and when you're posting on TikTok, like, 3 or 4 times or on Substack, I'm posting at least 3 or 4 times a
A
day,
day. Mm.
maybe 5, depending of how many times I get bored and I start thinking about things.
Woof.
I start I go, "Oh, I like that quote," or I hear something, "Oh, I think about this." Those moments, like, you write down something, and you're like,
That sounded brilliant in my head.
"And I should really share that," you know? Um, and yeah, that's where it goes, and sometimes I have a lot of these little quotes all over the place,
Mm.
and sometimes it doesn't fit in a story or whatever. Um, yeah. So there
So it'll be one off. It'll stand alone.
yes, there'll be a
I love
one-off.
those because sometimes I'm, on Substack and I'm having a day as I'm wont to do, and just the perfect phrase, just a phrase, just a sentence, maybe two, just pops right up, and I know I was meant to hear that,
Right.
and I go,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm just doing a little reset here. Thank you very much to the person who wrote it, and on we go. So how are you feeling right now? Are you wanting to wind up? Your eyes are getting a little
Yeah,
glassy.
I'm ready to cut it down.
A little glassy. I can feel you're starting to
Dwindle
fade.
down.
And your cheeks are getting a little red. Are you feverish?
I don't know if I am feverish, it's just in the room that I'm in, I guess, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, I wanna wrap it up, so I don't mean to
Yeah.
cut this short. Um,
No, no, I
so
think too, long this is still long form. We do an hour and I mean,
yeah.
we did an hour and 43 minutes last time. I'm like, that's quite long.
Yeah, we don't need to go that but, it
No.
is what it is. Whatever is
Well, it's the
good.
first one too, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you got establish it and it will be there in perpetuity and people can I someone said to me that they were watching it in chunks and I'm like, that's fine with me.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
awesome.
Appreciate very thank you.
Alright, so where they can you are you on Substack, obviously,
I'm on
and
Substack. I'm Kaz in the world, all over the world, on Instagram, on YouTube, actually those are only three places. I just could not be. I just I'm writing my fourth book. I write for other entities. I have two demanding chihuahuas and a husband who's getting ready to have back surgery. So I'm trying
oh,
to gear up for that. So I'll be around. His surgery is on 1 October, but I'll be home, but really focusing on him recovering the best possible. So, yeah, but I'm still on those 3 places and my website, kazakers.com. I'm always go there, say hi,
awesome.
say something. And you are just everywhere.
Well,
John,
mostly
everywhere.
on Substack. and you
Yeah,
can there's links on my bios, you can go there.
yeah. Oh,
But
hi,
Russ,
Green. I didn't get oh, who is it? Pam and Green. Thank you for joining us. I just wanna make sure I thank people for being here because it's really we're grateful. We're so grateful, and we're gonna be I guess we're gonna try to do this every Monday, eh?
yes, and we'll bring
And,
other we could bring other guests in. I'm not
love
100%
it.
yeah.
And we discussed that if you're sick or I try not to get sick or you're gone or something happens, we can still try to do it, and
Yes.
I'll be doing my live too, expression, consciousness, and the big picture. So, yeah, look for that, but yeah, thanks everybody, and
Yeah,
thanks,
thank you.
John. Always a
Alright,
good time. All right.
always.
See you
Bye-bye.
later, everybody. Thank you, John.
Thank you.